health inspectors have found numerous violations at the Mar-A-Lago resort. This is the place where new members can essentially shell out $200,000 to be members, and then they have to pay additional money just to eat at this fancy restaurant that has big, beautiful chocolate cakes. Now, the inspectors recently found 13 violations at the fancy club's kitchen, a record for an institution that charges $200,000 in initiation fees. Now, 3 of the violations were deemed high priority, meaning that they could allow the presence of illness-causing bacteria on plates served in the dining room. Now, they did these checks into the kitchen in January 26th to be specific, and here's what they found. Fish designed to be served raw or uncooked had not undergone proper parasite destruction. Kitchen staffers were ordered to cook the fish immediately or throw it out. Also, in 2 of the club's coolers, inspectors found that raw meats that should be stored at 41 degrees were much too warm and potentially dangerous. So chicken was at 49 degrees, duck 50 degrees, and raw beef 50 degrees. Ham was at 57 degrees. Also, the other violations weren't so serious. The water at the sink where employees wash their hands was too cold to sanitize. And also, it's interesting to keep in mind that in the past, Mar-A-Lago didn't have a lot of problems with these violations because Donald Trump himself, to give him credit, was very much involved in what was going on. Like, he would go in the kitchen, he would tell them what they needed to do. He was acting as a pretty effective boss in that scenario. But now, since he's very much involved in politics, he's not able to be as involved with the kitchen. There were 11 of these violations last year compared to just 2 in 2015. So you can see a steep incline in the number of violations as soon as he got involved with the campaign.
I just want to see an episode of Kitchen Nightmares. Where like Gordon Ramsay's like, this is raw food. Well, it's too warm, your ham's at 57 degrees.
Look, everything's kind of turning into a reality show.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've already seen reality TV and the White House merge, so why wouldn't Gordon Ramsay get involved with this situation?
Go back to your old job, Donald.
Yes, exactly.
You are good at that. I feel like maybe his employees are trying to poison him. Because you know whoever's cooking in that kitchen is not treated well. They can't even get warm water to wash their hands. So they're probably trying to poison old Donald boy.
I don't know what's going on, but it is pretty crazy to think that people could get sick. Look, I think that sometimes health code violations go too far, right? I've worked in the food service industry, and sometimes there are things that you're forced to do that just seem very nitpicky. So when I see, oh, this place has 13 violations, I know that a handful of them might be a little serious, and then the majority of them are, just going overboard. But that's just my opinion, man. I'm not an expert, so.
It's all part of the revolution. I think everybody's doing whatever they can in whatever capacity they can to fight and rebel against this administration. So even those health code people are probably like, what can we find here?
It's just, I like this part of the report that says, don't worry, at least Mar-A-Lago met the minimum standards for the health code. And that's really a good goal to have in mind.
Minimum standards.
Just like Donald Trump, make America meet minimum standards again. Like that's his new slogan. And if we could do that.
I mean, I wish he met the minimum standards to be president, but apparently when it comes to the White House, we don't really have strict regulations regarding minimum standards.
When I see all the meetings that he has with heads of state, the whole reason that we designed Washington, D.C. to look the way it does is to make it give you like the ultimate home court advantage. And what does Donald Trump do? Instead of like showing off this beautiful campus that looks like, ancient Greek architecture, it's so impressive. He takes them where? Florida. It's like, what are you doing? Like, I know people from Florida. They're like, don't take people
to Florida.
The whole, my fiance is from Florida, and her favorite Twitter handle is Florida, man.
Oh, that's the funniest Twitter handle.
It's out of control.
Florida is a fascinating place. I'm just gonna leave it there.
No offense to Florida, but it sucks.
It's like 3 states going on at once. But I read this article today that said, what is Donald Trump gonna do with Kellyanne Conway? How about you send her to the kitchen in Mar-A-Lago?
But I totally agree with you.
Practice what you preach as a conservative, right?
I totally agree with you though about just taking Donald being like, listen, we have a very important job for you to do. Could you please put down your mother of all weapons for a second there's a way higher priority thing.
Duck.
There's biological warfare going on. It's called E. coli, and it's in the kitchen. Go fix it.
Yeah.
And let him, arrange those deck chairs.
And I'd be pissed if I'm spending $200,000 a year to be part of this club, and the food is subpar. Like, that's one of the things they pride themselves in. I'd be pissed. Where's the outrage? Where is the outrage, you Mar-A-Lago consumers?
It reminded me of people tweeting out photos of like the food at the Trump Tower restaurant and how bad it was. I don't know. The other thing is like, $200,000 initiation fee. It's like, do you want? People say, let's get Donald Trump, he's a businessman, so he'll run the government like a business. It's like, this is an aspect of a business, is to see how much you can charge people for stuff.
Right, well, here's the thing. I would venture to say that some of the people who are paying this increased initiation price aren't necessarily doing it because they're looking forward to the fancy pokey dish at the restaurant. I mean, Donald Trump continuously advertises the fact that he is going to his winter White House or he's going to Mar-a-Lago every weekend, and people want that access. These are the wealthiest individuals in the country who can afford to pay this type of fee, and they know that being able to, be in close proximity to Trump or being able to say, Trump, hey, what's up? I'm paying that fee. You're more likely to be represented and heard by the president. I think it has more to do with that as opposed to the resort itself.
At least make it like not as obvious as like a literal exclusive club.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people say, like, it's actually an exclusive club. Like you look at it, it's like the athletic, it's like the athletic facilities in Congress. It's like this exclusive club. It's like, no, actually, this is a country club where people pay $200,000 to have access.
He takes the notion of smoke-filled rooms and kind of flips it on its head. I mean, you gotta, I guess, maybe applaud how transparent it is, but I don't think he's attempting to be transparent. I just think that he lacks the sophistication necessary to be a little more secretive about the fact that you are corrupt.
Do you think the reason he isn't doing proper parasite destruction is because he's afraid that he's a parasite? We shouldn't do that.
I think we should raise $1 million and send a Muslim, a Mexican, a gay person. Like, we need to assemble a group of all of the undesirables to these people and get them a membership to this club.
That's a great. I bet there's like a voting process.
I want like $5 million so we can flood a bunch of people in there. You know what I mean? Not just one representative of each disenfranchised group.
That's why I like this story. I know all these things are not very practical solutions, but they really feel good.
They feel good. It feels good just to talk about it. So no, it's awesome.
We're not the Young Turks. You're the Young Turks. You power this show. Together, we built something amazing. We've broken stories like the Donna Brazile story the mainstream media wouldn't break. We built the studio, we built this network. It's now #1, all thanks to you guys. Let's come build it even bigger and stronger. TYTnetwork.com/join.